Hi, this documentary is about hipsters and how they are compared to the norm. We're going to ask a bunch of people questions which I have gathered from all my sources. I've integrated all my sources inside the documentary itself by forming questions out of them than rather stating them explicitly. What image pops in your head when you first think of the word hipster?
When I first think of the word hipster, I think about clothing. Hipsters usually stand out by what they wear, and it's usually they wear accessories when they're not needed. So like an example would be wearing a hat in the summer, or wearing like a hood when you're inside, like something like that. Like a hipster just does things just because they can, and it's not really even necessary. They just do it to stand out, you know.
When I picture a hipster, they have their own way of dressing, I guess. They dress a certain way, they talk in a certain way. They have their like own sort of slang, I guess. Say stuff like, so radical, dude.
I think trendy and fashionable and creative, outside the norm, which I don't mean that bad.
As someone that's like not mainstream, they don't like the things that everyone does.
To me, a hipster is someone who does not participate in activities or believe in ideals that they deem like mainstream. So say like normal people are like, hey, let's go out and like get some ice cream, and hipsters like, so 2013, like let's go crawl under a rock and like make some bracelets out of string or something.
The questions and answers in the clips you just saw were all formulated around this source, which I took a satirical book and formed questions so I can ask the audience and gauge their responses. How would you think society defines hipsters versus how you yourself define it?
I think hipsters are just like normal people, but society likes to make them seem different even though they're really not. I mean, if you think about it, we all try to be fashionable and modern, but there's like some people who get categorized, which I don't really think is fair.
Like, you can also define a hipster by like how they talk and whatnot. They just like to be cool and groovy. They like to use vocab like people never heard before. Like, I'm gonna go to Dover, bro.
They like to wear scarves, pretty much in any situation.
They have their own slang terms.
They use phrases that nobody else would really use, words. They talk kind of old-fashioned.
I busted a Moby while holding a Bronson at that party. Cool.
I don't know, whatever was popular like the 80s or 90s.
I like to wear my socks on top of my shoes, Jerry.
Like amongst themselves they're probably normal, but then when they get around other people just to be different, they use a bunch of words that they think are either like above normal people vocabulary or something.
Like when I'm going to be doing my prezo for the next class.
This source is my scholarly source. It's a newspaper article, and the questions before and after are formulated around this source. So how do you think the way hipsters, I guess, imposed with society, talk different than normal English? Do you think they talk different, and if so, like how do you think they talk different?
I don't think the English language changes that much if you're a hipster or if you're not a hipster.
It's not boring. It's usually creative, driven by creativity and a desire to be anything but the status quo.
Like for example, the word deck. Most people won't use the word deck, they'll just use the normal word like cool.
The word deck, what do you think it means in hipster terms?
Hey, you want to go get some food? Like, let's go get some deck.
They'll say things like golly gee and stuff like that, I think.
Society likes to get all these different qualities and identify with a certain group of people like hipsters, but
I would think the only thing that affects their stereotypes and images are other people's perceptions, not their perceptions of themselves.
So I think after looking at all the interviews I did with several people, I think you can see that stereotypes do exist and our society is majorly ruled by stereotypes, and then they all do agree that there's a distinct difference in the language of how hipsters talk versus how just standard American English goes.